So welcome to our weekend workshop for the Johannesburg group. It's an online weekend workshop, and been looking forward to this particular weekend to support liftoff. You know, a plane has to be on the runway for a while as it picks up speed. And when the plane picks up enough speed, then the plane can take off. If a plane is on a runway, it can't just take off unless it picks up speed. So there has to be those engines operating, thrust developing. And at a certain level, the thrust that develops is sufficient to propel that massive chunk of metal into the air. What a thing it is that a plane with hundreds of people aboard with luggage just takes off at a certain point. If you see the plane at a standstill, it can't take off. But yet, that same plane, when it's moving and is built thrust through the engines, through the propulsion, jet propulsion, it's a jet propulsion engine, then it just, zooms right into the sky. So, that's the point at which we are at. From a standstill, we slowly start applying ourselves, building energy, building power. And then with that level of power, you can take off, and this is the thing we talk about, supporting a shift in consciousness. Supporting a shift in consciousness. So you'll be the same person, but you've got to first support a shift in consciousness. And when the shift in consciousness is being materialized, from that shift in consciousness, you can apply yourself in a different way. So whether I quit smoking or overcame some kind of, characteristics of a powerless person, as that powerless person, I had to apply myself in shifting my consciousness to a powerful person. And then I suddenly experience myself as a more powerful person, and then a lot more is capable for us. You can't go from a lack-based person to an abundance-based person instantaneously. It's a lie. The way that it's taught by people and on the internet and all that, just do this one thing and change this and just do that. There's no such thing. In fact, you're not supposed to change yourself, and you're not supposed to change your thinking and your behaviors and your actions and interactions and your life and the people and things in your life. You're not supposed to change anything. If you start off by trying to change something, you're an addict, you're powerless. That's called control, that's resistance, that's reaction. We're against what we don't want, and we're trying to get rid of what we don't want. That's oppositional to being patient. So we want to realize that we apply ourselves not to change our thinking, and not to change our speaking, and not to change our feeling, and not to change our acting and interacting and behavior and circumstances and people and what's going on in our life. We let everything be the way it is, including ourselves. We don't try to change ourselves. We don't try and change anybody or anything. We surrender. We let go the need to change anybody or anything. We let it go. This botheredness about what's going on and thinking that it shouldn't be going on, we shouldn't be the way we are. Others shouldn't be the way they are. Our life shouldn't be the way it is. Our bodies shouldn't be the way our bodies are. Our relationships shouldn't be the way our relationships are. Everything actually should be the way it is, because our consciousness is the way it is. We are focused a certain way, and as we focus the way that we focus, as we are aware to the degree that we are aware, as we live with the perspective and paradigms, points of view that we have, our level of awareness, our lives are the result of that. Our behaviors, our thinking, how we are, including our personality, our characteristics, is a result of our level of awareness, our level of consciousness, or how conscious we are. So it's pointless remaining at the same level of consciousness or remaining at the same level in consciousness and trying to change ourselves and our lives and our relationships and the people we're relating to. It's pointless. But that's what people usually do. They from the level of unconsciousness or subconsciousness, they're operating very unconsciously, they're operating very subconsciously, and they think the way they do the way they do, they act and interact the way they do, they feel and speak the way they do, they have whoever they have in their life, and they have those relations in the way that it is, that currently. It's a function of your level of consciousness, awareness. What's happening in your energy? What level are you at in terms of energy? How much of energy you are flowing? How are you focusing energy? So the idea is not to try and change anything in your life, not even your body, not even you, or anybody and anything. But the idea is to become more aware. More aware. The way for you to go through a change, or for you to not be the same, think the same, speak the same, feel the same, act the same, interact the same, behave the same, have the same life, have the same people, behave the same way in your life, same experiences. You don't try and change any of that. Are you going through a change in you? Now notice I didn't say you must change yourself. I said by you going through a change in you. I didn't say you must change yourself. There's nothing for you to change. What can you change really? What can you do really? What can a created temporary being do really? We can't really do anything. We couldn't cause ourselves to be. We can't cause ourselves to continue to be. So we can't really, we don't have any power to change anybody or anything. Not even ourselves, our bodies. But we can have ourselves, our bodies, our lives, our relating, our actions, we can have a change in that area of life. We can have a change in ourselves, in our bodies, in our lives, in our relationships, in the people, in the experiences, the way we are. We can have a change. We can experience a change. There most definitely can be a change in your life. You can have a changed experience. There's no doubt about that. You can have another way of thinking, you can have another way of speaking, you can have another way of feeling, you can have another way of acting, interacting, you can have another way of your body being, you can have another way of your life being. You can have another way of relating, you can have another way of experiencing life, you can have another experience in life. You really can experience a different experience, that's for sure. So how do you get to a different experience without changing yourself or without you changing it? Because that's what we think. If you've got a problem, you've got to do something about it, you've got to get rid of it, you've got to address it, and when you change it, then it won't be there anymore and you'll have something else. So that's what we're talking about, supporting a shift in consciousness, supporting, getting the jet propulsion going, getting the engines firing away. And when the engines fire away, when there's that level of flow, then the plane takes off. You actually get to have what you want to experience. Without you changing your current experience, without you changing what you don't want into what you don't want, without you making what you want happen. So you can support the engines, firing away. And that's what we call shifting in consciousness, or supporting a shift in consciousness. And I said to you, if you want to become a motorist, you got to do the yellow book and take the test, and then get the blue book, and then get driver's education, and then eventually take the yard test, and you take the road test, and before you know it, you're on the road, and then after that you automatically operating as a motorist. But you don't just go from being somebody who doesn't know how to drive to flipping a switch and now you know how to drive. I mean, how does a person make themselves be able to drive? If somebody says, I see there's a motor vehicle, I'd like to drive it, can you make yourself drive it? Can a non-motorist, unlicensed person, or a person who hasn't gone for any kind of instruction around driving in the rules of the road, can they really just get into a car and drive it? Can they make themselves become a driver? Or do they support a shift in consciousness? Do they support becoming a motorist? And when you become a motorist, that as you become a motorist, you then learn to drive, and then you'll be driving. You learn about the road, the rules of the road, about the motor vehicle, about things. You become more aware about the car, the road, the rules of the road. You become aware of things, moving forward, in reverse, alley docking, parallel parking. You become aware of all these things, and you start applying yourself in this new world of awareness until You're so aware of it that you don't even realize you're aware of it, and you're operating in that new world without really being aware that you're aware, and operating from within the new awareness. So nobody can say, I'm going to try and drive a car without supporting becoming a motorist. If you try to drive a car without becoming a motorist, you'll never really succeed in driving a car. That means you have to go through some kind of learning process to become more aware. And that might mean you jumping in the car and starting yourself and trying. And yes, that's what I did as a child. I took the keys, I jumped in the car, and I saw my father doing what he used to do. I said, let me do it, I want to do it too. And you figure it out. But you figure it out, and it takes time to figure it out. And then you figured it out, and then you're doing it automatically. The same with riding a bicycle. Nobody just jumps on a bicycle and says, I'm going to ride this bike today. You support getting a cyclist consciousness of balance. You apply yourself to the point where you can balance. And after that, you don't even realize you know how to ride a bicycle. You've got your balance. But nobody just jumps on a bicycle and rides it, generally. So when we try to, in some way, do something, change something, live another way, it's like jumping on a bicycle and thinking you're just going to ride it. And you're obviously going to fall, because you don't have a cyclist consciousness, you don't have a level of balance, you haven't developed yourself. You're not going to be able to jump in a car and drive to, somewhere far away if you have no experience at all in driving and make it there. You need to, you've got to be aware of the rules of the road, you've got to be aware of other motorists, how they operate. You might be able to just chance it in the yard here and there, whatever, but you've got to have a certain level of awareness and experience. Before you can really go places, literally. So that's what we're talking about here, that we've been applying ourselves to support going beyond the powerlessness consciousness, the needy consciousness, the trance-based living. That we've all had certain, and we might still do to some degree or another, have these personality with limiting ways about us, that we are operating or have been or might still be with these kind of beliefs that we've had about need. We believe we need something or somebody. We believe that we need to do something. We believe that something is needed of us or from somebody else, or somebody needs from us, that something is needed. It's needed of me, to make sure I'm okay. It's needed of me to go through life a certain way. I've got to go through life a certain way. It's needed for me to live a certain way. I was working with somebody the other evening, and that's one of the things that I was speaking to them, because the person said to me that they were told by a psychologist that ... long story. And I said to that person, did they give you any solutions? Did they give you any solutions? No. I said, so they got you thinking about your childhood and your past and so on and so forth, but they didn't give you any solution. You're going to spend your time now thinking about your past for I don't know how many years. I said to them, the problem is you don't feel free to enjoy yourself now. You don't feel free now. You don't feel free now. That's the problem. And you don't feel free, and so you don't feel free to really enjoy yourself, enjoy your life. And you're not letting yourself enjoy yourself and enjoy your life. I said, look at your life. Do you really, have you started living? I said, it doesn't look like you started living. Don't ever think you married and divorced and you got children and you started living. Don't ever think that because you got a job you started living. It might shock a lot of people that they really haven't started living. It might shock people. They really haven't started living, because you can't live until you experience being free. Only when you experience being free, then you can experience being free to live. If you don't experience being free, you won't experience being free to live. You won't. See, so there are parts of us that are operating through our, what we will call personality, and these parts of us have ideas and beliefs and convictions, and they are so certain. They're so certain. And you are living through these certainties. You're living your life through the certainties of your personality. And that personality is usually your child self. It's usually what you understood as a child. And so a lot of us are living our adult lives, meaning like a grown-up, but not really living as adults. We don't have an adult consciousness. We're still living as a child consciousness. And a lot of people say, a lot of people are so irresponsible. You've got to be responsible, and an adult is like super responsible and take care of everybody and everything. No, that's not an adult consciousness. That's a parent consciousness. So you can either live at a child consciousness, irresponsible, needy, need people to look after you, not living your life powerfully, or you can live as a parent consciousness, always looking after everybody else and making sure everybody else is okay and you okay. And whether it's the child or the parent, it's still a child, because it's not an adult. The child consciousness shows itself in two ways. Child as child, or child as parent. Because when you were little, you might have needed somebody to be there for you, and there was nobody there for you, and so you feel like there's nobody there for you and you're needy. Or as a child, you might have had to be there for somebody else. As a child, you had to look after other people, maybe your mom, or maybe family members or siblings or whatever it is. So as a child, you might have experienced that feeling of, I'm alone, there's nobody here for me, a type of abandonment, emotional abandonment or physical abandonment. And you might feel like that and live like that as an adult, as a grown-up, but not really being an adult. You may still be living as a grown-up, like a child who's looking after everybody else but not looking after yourself, or not being cared for. So you could be living a life as a grown-up without feeling nurtured, and without nurturing yourself, without being, paid attention to, and so on and so forth, and you living your life from a child personality, showing as a child, dependent, or as a parent, while you're a grown up, and you haven't started living really. And your life has been contaminated by these aspects of you that remain unconscious or subconscious. So, what we're talking about here is to do the work in consciousness. That means to apply yourself to support a shift in consciousness. If you don't support a shift in consciousness, if you have that low level of consciousness, it will result in a low experience of life. If you're operating as an abandoned child, either a needy child or a codependent child or a pseudo-independent child, meaning basically you're depending on others, you feel I'll be okay when I get something, I'll be okay when I have somebody, or I'll be okay because I'm looking after people, codependency, or I'm okay because I look after myself. If you're living as that person, you're living as an abandoned child, self-abandoned child. You're living, feeling, not cared for. You feel uncared for. You're not experiencing being cared for. You're not experiencing being supported. You're not experiencing being protected. You're not. And so you're going to feel vulnerable, you're going to feel threatened, and you're going to be looking to be okay. You're going to think, I'll be okay when? I need to be okay. And that's what we are talking about, that there are aspects of us that have a belief in need, and they're very convincing. And of course they've been convinced of that belief. And they run our lives. It's there, we're not aware of it. We're living it, but we're not aware of it. We actually being these aspects without being aware that we're being these aspects. We live out these beliefs without understanding or appreciating or valuing or recognizing rather. We're living out these beliefs without recognizing that we're living out these beliefs. We are in these beliefs, controlled by these beliefs, these aspects of us that believe these things, and we are living out the past today. We are maintaining shallow experiences of life rather than going to a deeper, richer experience of life. As adults, we can have a deeper, richer experience of life beyond a child level. See, a child can't really do what an adult really easily does. A child is stuck, and trapped in limited awareness, limited resourcefulness, and is in a limited world. So a lot of us as grown-ups are having repeating patterns from our childhood and through our own personality. We don't realize it. The same personality that has we lived out in our childhood, we continue that same personality in our adulthood, and thus then we are not in the aspect of us that is empowered. So as an adult, as a grown-up, as a person beyond being a child biologically, when you are biologically grown up, you have resources and abilities, and you can operate in a very different way that we operate as a child. You can operate in a completely different way. But in the child consciousness, we are maintaining the same way we felt and believed and acted and interacted, and we're controlled by these child aspects, And then what happens is we relive these patterns out over and over and over again. And we want to actually go beyond these limiting patterns. We want to go beyond creating these limiting patterns. We want to observe our role in creating these limiting patterns. What is within us the identity, the personality? What are we, believing and feeling as true, and it's not true? And we're keeping ourselves today from a greater, deeper truth that, we are secure. We are okay. We don't need anything. What's keeping us from experiencing being secure, self-full, and satisfied? See, it's us. It's aspects of our personality. So we are the ones that are unconsciously operating in a way that promotes neediness, insecurity. We are the ones that unconsciously operate in a way that cause us to live powerlessly, interacting powerlessly, like not nurturing ourselves, not supporting nourishing living, and we keep ourselves from being creative, living a fulfilled life. So basically, we keep ourselves from these three power centers. Power center 1 is spiritual power. Power center 2 is personal power. And power center 3 is creative power. I've referred to it as well-being, wellness, and wealth. See, when you know you don't need anything or anybody, and you know that you're okay and you're free, you don't have to make yourself be okay, then you have supported going from a needy beggar to a secure believer or boss. You understand? This is what we've got to support. We've got to support going from a needy beggar to a secure believer or boss, or secure person, if you want to call it that. And we've got to support going from a selfish or selfless child, a self-abandoning child who's relating powerlessly, very poor self-nurturing and life-nourishing skills, to, having and applying ourselves powerfully in our lives, relating powerfully with ourselves and our lives, having the skills, for self-nurturing and self-relating, body-relating, life-relating, nurturing ourselves, our body, and supporting nourishing life experiences. We've got to support going beyond the beggar to the believer, the addict to the adult, the powerless, addict to the powerful adult. And we've got to support from going, to go from the depriving, self-depriving victim to the vicegerent, the supportive of fulfillment vicegerent, the victor. We've got to support that. That is what we've got to support, the shift in consciousness. So this is what we're talking about here, that we have an opportunity to support a deeper, richer experience of our being, or not. You can remain needy and powerless and have a very shallow experience of life, and yourself, a shallow experience of yourself and life, or you can support a shift in consciousness and you can experience yourself as a non-needy, a secure person. You can go beyond being a beggar who depends on you, others depend on you, you depend on things, you depend on, it's either dependency, depending on people and things, or others depending on you, codependency, or depending on yourself. You can go beyond dependency. You can go beyond. As an adult, you're not dependent. That doesn't mean you must become independent, because you can't be independent. You depend on God. We are non-dependent. We are created non-dependent. We are created free. We are created to live freely. We are supported in living freely. We are. But not everybody wants to have that deeper experience of experiencing being supported in living freely. Not everybody wants that, and not everybody supports that, and thus then not everybody will live as a powerful adult in the sense of a believer, a non-needy believer, a boss, not depending on anybody or anything, not trying to get. And that's the first power center that we've been looking at. Well-being, spiritual well-being, spiritual power. And we've been working with the ultimate release, which is basically worship therapy. The worship and prayer protocols that I've been sharing with us. We've been these people who are needy, but instead of perpetuating neediness, we're supporting to go beyond the illusory experience of neediness, the shallow experience of neediness, to a deeper experience of non-neediness, freedom, okayness. That we can have an alternate experience from neediness to okayness. We can experience being okay right here, right now. That I'm free now. I need nothing for me to be okay. I don't need to be happy for me to be okay. Nothing is needed. I'm okay now. And to experience that I'm okay now. And it is a process to get to that point, from neediness to non-neediness. You can't just be one moment a needy person and the next moment a non-needy person. I'm not saying it can't happen, but you've got to go through a process. If you go through a process, of supporting a shift in consciousness, you'll get there. Don't get me wrong, I learned to drive without reading the yellow book and without going for driver's lessons, classes on the farm. I grew up on a farm, and there were all kinds of things there to drive. My father's vehicles, a tractor, a whole lot of things. And I used to witness these people driving these things, and I used to tell them, teach me how to drive. So I learned how to drive, but it was a process. Eventually I had to go through the yellow book to know the rules of the road and all that sort of thing. But you've got to go through a process. You just can't go from being needy, say some magic words, and now you're not needy. It doesn't work like that. You have to learn, you have to grow, you have to develop, you have to become aware. In this case, you have to challenge lies. You have to look at the championing of lies. Where am I championing lies? You have to look at where am I keeping myself, from security. How am I keeping myself from security? How am I showing up? What is the aspect of me? Which part of me from my childhood is living needily, even now in my adulthood? You see, I was explaining to the person I was working with the other evening, I said that right now in this moment, your freedom has got nothing to do with your past. In this moment, experiencing being free has got nothing to do with what happened in your childhood, It's got nothing to do with what anybody might tell you. It's got to do with your being aware of the truth. I said to him, do you have a strategy to move forward, to go beyond your insecurities? Did the psychologist tell you, this is the way we're going to get you to be more secure? Did the psychologist tell you, the only problem here is you're not feeling free, and you're keeping yourself from experiencing being free? You're keeping yourself needy and stressed and strained, and therefore you can't really enjoy yourself in your life. Did the psychologist tell you that? The answer was no. I said, well, you're going to be wasting your time playing games in the illusion. Because our freedom is something that we can experience now. And we can support experiencing freedom now. You can't just go from not free to free. But if you recognize, I'm feeling trapped, I'm needy, and you begin to explore and go through the process, you can actually become aware of the childhood aspects of you that have these beliefs in need, and you can begin to challenge them instead of living through them, instead of perpetuating them. You don't have to promote them. You can become aware of them and release them. You can release the stuff that's not true, that you believe is true. You can observe that you are the one causing yourself to feel needy. Neediness is not caused by anybody else or the lack of anything. Nothing in the external world causes our neediness. Nothing can cause us to be needy. Neediness is a reaction. Nothing and nobody in our external world can cause us to be needy. Nothing and nobody in the external world can cause us to be needy. Nothing causes us to be needy. It's us, through our powerless reactions, that create our neediness. We create our own neediness. So nothing creates us to be needy. Nothing has the power to cause us to be needy. You can say it like that. Nothing has any power to cause us to be needy. Nothing can make us needy. We're never needy because of a lack of something. So nothing and nobody in this world can make us needy. We're never needy because we lack something. We create our own neediness. We participate in the creation of our own neediness. It's not anybody, it's us that creates our neediness. And if you don't look at your belief in neediness and challenge your belief in neediness, you'll remain needy and trying to get and trying to get and trying to do, and you'll be lost. Your life will come and your life will go. Your life will come and your life will go. And you wouldn't have even begun to live it. See? So it's really our limiting, our self-limiting. We're operating through our personalities which are self-limiting. The experiences of growing up, the beliefs that we had as children, the ideas that we've had, we continue to hold on to them as we grow. But they are limiting. They are obstructing. They keep us from experiencing spiritual power, flowing energy, knowing that we are okay, experiencing non-neediness, freedom. We have these personality aspects that believe erroneously and create neediness. you know. So we our job is to become aware. Our work is to become aware of our personality, the way in which we limit ourselves, and challenge the way in which we limit ourselves, and championing our support of, expansion, enhancement. We've got to look at how do we keep ourselves needy, and do we want to continue doing that? Can we stop that? And can we begin to support us experiencing the deeper truth that we are not needy, we're free. We're free of need, nothing is needed. We are okay right here, right now. See, that's what our work has been about with worship and prayer. Supporting the first power center. And it has been a process. You can't just do it once and think it's going to be done. You can't just come for one workshop and think it's sorted. You used to study. You're undertaking the greatest study, the most challenging study, to undo your own personality. To look at yourself and see how you are operating in a way that's holding you back from security. And to stop doing that if you choose, and to actually operate in a way that supports your security. This is the shift in consciousness that I'm talking about. Supporting a believer's consciousness. Or if you don't like that word, supporting a boss consciousness rather than a beggar. And that's what we've been looking at for years. And the whole involvement of the worship, our involvement in and the evolvement of the worship prayer protocols to where it has been and where it is and where we're using it and how we use it. To support basically having a believer consciousness. To have a believer consciousness. To be a believer is to have a believer consciousness. If you have a believer consciousness compared to a disbelieving consciousness, it will show in you, in how you interact, in how you live, what you have. Those who believe, means those who have a believer consciousness, those that are secure, they can then operate in a way with personal power. If you do not really support security, freedom, you cannot really relate to yourself, your body and your life. You can't relate powerfully as a person if you are not a believer or a boss conscious person. If you don't feel secure, you can't be self-full. You're wasting your time. A beggar will never be self-full. A beggar will never operate in a way that's nurturing. Have you ever seen a beggar self-nurturing? Have you ever seen a beggar that is life-enriching? Have you ever seen a beggar interested in themselves, their body and their lives, caring for themselves, their body and their lives? Have you ever seen it? You won't see it. Because a beggar is actually kept from personal power because they are not experiencing spiritual power. Spiritual power is essential for personal power. Spiritual power is a prerequisite for personal power. You got to feel non-needy. You got to feel free. You got to feel secure. You got to feel okay now. For you to be interested in you, your body, your life, and even your afterlife. You've got to feel okay. Now, before you can support your ease, your joy, your enjoyment, have you ever seen a joyous beggar, a really joyous, supporting ease and joy and good feeling, supporting them have good stuff in life, really enjoyable? Have you ever seen a powerful beggar? No. And if you've never seen a powerful beggar, then you won't see a prosperous beggar. Because these three are related. You've got to be progressive before you can be powerful, before you can be prosperous. You've got to be into well-being before you can be into wellness, before you can have wealth in your life. So we recognize that spiritual power is really primary. If you have spiritual energy through spiritual power, you can then apply yourself freely and easily, nurturing yourself, really enjoying caring for you, caring for your body, caring for your life, caring for your afterlife as well. It's easy. You love doing it. You feel good about it. You'll operate as an adult rather than an addict. The more secure you are. The more secure you are, the non-needy you are, the more non-needy you are, the more you're not a beggar, the more you are a believer, the more freer you are to relate to yourself, your body and your life powerfully. Because the addict is relating to themselves powerlessly, relating to their bodies powerlessly, and relating to their lives powerlessly. The addict is not caring for themselves, not valuing themselves, is not valuing their bodies and their lives. They're not feeling value. They are not relating valuingly. They're not appreciating themselves, their existence, their bodies, and their lives. They're not appreciating and valuing it. And their afterlives, they're not even looking at the quality of life in this world and the quality of life in the next. They're not really relating powerfully, valuingly, caringly. For somebody to care for themselves and contribute to themselves, for their body, to contribute to their body, for their lives, to contribute to their life. For somebody to have a vision for themselves, for their bodies, for their lives. For somebody to participate in, benefiting themselves, their body and their lives, and their afterlives as well. Really interested in having a vision in these areas, that person must have spiritual power. That person must have spiritual energy. It's like if I have a good night's sleep and I'm energized, I'm ready for the day. I've got a lot of energy and I'm ready for the day. But if you don't sleep well and you don't eat well and you don't move your body, because this is very important, get good quality sleep, at least 7 hours of sleep a night, And if you're getting good quality sleep, begin to say, I support good quality sleep. I support, I care for my body. I am caring. You can have a commitment to yourself to care for your body, and it can involve, I get good sleep, 7 hours a night, at least. I have good quality sleep. You can start there. And you can relate to your body by giving it good rest. You can relate to your body by giving it movement, You don't have to do strength training if you don't want to, but move it. Move that body. Get that heart pumping, cardio. Take a walk, brisk walk. That's caring for your body. You're supporting, energizing yourself. Physical energy. Get good sleep. Move that body. And feed that body stuff that is energizing of the body. Supporting the body's energy. Don't feed yourself stuff that takes away energy. If you have more physical energy, you can accomplish more in the physical world. Now, in the same way, the spiritual energy. If you have spiritual energy, you will accomplish more in the world too, and in the afterworld. You'd have a higher level of involvement in this world and in the world beyond, if the higher your level of spiritual energy. So the more spiritual energy you have, the more you'll be into nurturing yourself, your body and your life, supporting, nourishing life experiences. So if you see somebody who's neglecting their bodies, neglecting themselves, neglecting their lives, neglecting aspects of their lives, you know you're looking at a beggar. You know you're looking at a beggar. If you are that, then you know you're operating as a beggar. You are having a limited, shrunken experience. You're having a limited, shrunken experience. Because you are championing, showing up through the personality, through the ego, through limiting of yourself, you keeping yourself insecure. You keeping yourself from experiencing being free. You're not letting yourself experience being free. You're keeping yourself, you're operating in a way that keeps you needy. So needy people, there's no real needy people. There's people who believe in need and then they experience themselves as needy. There's no needy people. Please, you can write that one down for me as well. There are no needy people. There's just people who maintain the illusory belief in need and experience themselves as needy. There's no such thing as needy people. But you can have you're not needy, but you can have an experience of need. So again, there's no such thing as needy people. There's no such thing as needy people. There are people who believe in need. They believe in need. They erroneously believe in need. And then they experience themselves as needy. But there's no needy people. There's only people who experience themselves as being needy because they believe in need, erroneously believe in need. So that's fine. So we are supporting security. 90% of the work is supporting security, spiritual power. If you've got spiritual power, you can move on to the next power level, which is personal power, which is 9% of the work. And if you got your 90 plus your 9, if you got your spiritual power and your personal power, then your last 1% is creative power. Creative power. Meaning, if you feel free, you can operate in a way that is supporting natural good feelings for you, your body, your life. You can be a person who participates powerfully relating to yourself. If you're operating needily, there will be no relating to yourself. There'll be no powerful relating to yourself. There'll be very powerless relating to yourself. Addicts are like neglecting of themselves at best and defeating of themselves, damaging of their bodies and destructive in their lives. People can be all kinds of addicts. From the overt addicts, get so obsessed with something whether it's gambling or drugs, that they don't care about how they feel. They don't care about how their body feels and how their life feels. They're not really interested in the quality of their being, their bodies and their lives. They're not interested. All is on their mind is that drug, that substance, gambling. Just got to do that. That controls their life. You see, what are you controlled by? In the overt, obvious ways, it's gambling, it's addiction. Can be all kinds of addiction. Food addiction, work addiction, sex addiction. Religious addiction, where the person is obsessed with something, trying to feel excited or relieved or safe, but not really supporting ease, joy and enjoyment, security and satisfaction, not really supporting. They're not operating in a way that is selfful, caring for themselves, their body and their lives. They think they're doing something wonderful, especially in work addiction or workaholism or people pleasing. They think they're doing something grand. It destroys them. The belief in need. I need to help people. I need to do these things. I need to get these things done. I need to worship. I need to be free. That's a paradox in itself. I need to be free. There's no need. So, the thing is this. We've got to understand this movement between the three power centers. First power center, spiritual power, spiritual energy. If you develop your spiritual energy, if you go beyond leaking your spiritual energy, if you let yourself experience being secure now, which you already are, you will then be free to operate in a way that is nurturing of yourself, your body, and nourishing in your life. You'll be able to care for you, for your body, your life. It will happen easily and naturally, and you'll enjoy doing it. You'll enjoy doing it. And from there, which is the second spiritual power center, then you can go to the third spiritual power center, which is creative living. Now that's where you can have a vision for your body, for yourself, for your life, for your afterlife. Now you can focus on enjoyable experiences. Now you can focus on what is it that you want to enjoy experiencing. What in life do you want to have the natural, enjoyable experience of? So we are free right here, right now. We are okay now. We are now secure. Right here, right now. There is no need to try to be okay, to try to be secure, to try to be free. When you get that and you champion that truth, which might involve challenging the personality self, the limiting aspect of you, how you're limiting yourself, because that's what a beggar is doing. The beggar is thinking they're doing something wonderful. Let's go and stand at the street corner and wait for money. The beggar has made money God, something to focus on in an excessive way, in an exclusive way, and to have strong feeling about. Whatever you focus on in an excessive way that is created, in an exclusive way that is created, and in a special way, you have special feeling about it, is an idol. And you lose power. When you're an idolater, you lose power to your idols. This is why we want to go beyond idolatry. Because once you go beyond idolatry, once you stop making things that are created powerful, when you realize things that are created have no power, when you wake up from the trance that you're in, now you are operating at a deeper and higher level of living as an adult. Now you go beyond the self-abandoned child, the self-abandoning child. And you now in the adult. From that adult level of power, which is personal power, personal empowerment, you can then go into creative power. Now you can have dreams and aspirations. Now there's visions. You can have a vision. You can focus into an alternate reality. You can focus into what is pleasing, pleasant, enjoyable, and fulfilling. What in the world is and in the afterworld that is there for you to experience the enjoyable experience of. What people, things, and experiences, what can serve you? That is of value to us. What can we enjoy? What can we have that supports us? That it's of value to us, and what is the value of people, things, and experiences of a high vibration that we can appreciate and benefit from them and be supported by them. See, now you can go into the world, and that's where wealth comes in. What is valuable to us, and why is it valuable to us? Because it's at a higher level of appreciation. An insecure woman will never value a genuinely caring man. Vice versa. An insecure man will never really value a caring woman. Because they are operating needily through life, insecure, and they don't care for themselves, their bodies, their lives. They don't care about anybody else, and then they're not going to recognize the value. What's valuable. What's really valuable. And that's what we're going to talk about now going forward, getting more practical about valuing God, innate value of God, God's valuing of us, the value of ourselves, our bodies, our lives, the value of people, things, and experiences, operating at that higher level in support of human excellence. You see, this is what we're talking about.